My name is Martha, and at 68 years old, I never thought my own flesh and blood would betray me. After 40 years of teaching and carefully saving every penny, I trusted my son Gregory with everything I had. The day I confronted him about my missing life savings, I saw a darkness in his eyes I'd never witnessed before. As I felt his hands against my back and tumbled down those stairs, I realized money had transformed my loving son into a stranger. If you've ever trusted someone completely only to have that trust shattered, you know the pain I felt that day. Please let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button, as I share how I discovered what true family loyalty means. I dedicated my entire adult life to shaping young minds as an elementary school teacher in Boston. For 40 years I stood in front of classrooms full of bright-eyed children, teaching them their ABCs and basic arithmetic, watching them grow and develop into thoughtful individuals. My classroom was my sanctuary, and my students were like extended family. Teaching wasn't just a profession for me, it was a calling. My husband Patrick was my rock throughout those years. We met in college, married young, and built a beautiful life together. He worked as an accountant at a respectable firm, and between our two modest salaries we lived comfortably. We weren't wealthy by any means, but we were careful with money. Patrick always insisted on putting away a portion of our earnings each month. For a rainy day, he would say with that gentle smile of his. The rainy day came 5 years ago when Patrick was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer. Within 6 months he was gone. The grief was overwhelming, like drowning in open air. Suddenly, after 43 years of marriage, I found myself alone in our family home, surrounded by memories but with no one to share them. Patrick had always been prudent with our finances. His life insurance policy, combined with my retirement fund and the modest inheritance from his parents, left me with approximately $750,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to ensure I could live comfortably for the rest of my life if I continued to be careful. After 2 years of rattling around in our empty house, the loneliness became unbearable. Our son Gregory, who was 45 at the time, suggested I move closer to him and his family. Seemed like the perfect solution. I could be near my son, his wife Heather, and my beloved grandchildren Lily and Samuel, who were 15 and 12. Gregory had always been a good son growing up. Studious and ambitious, he'd made us proud when he secured a position as an investment banker at a prestigious firm in the city. He married Heather when they were both in their late 20s. She was beautiful and charming, if a bit focused on appearances. I remember Patrick whispering to me after their wedding, "That one's got expensive taste, Martha." But I dismissed his concerns, just happy that our son had found someone who seemed to make him happy. I sold our family home and purchased a small but comfortable condo just 20 minutes from Gregory and Heather's large suburban house. It was a lovely arrangement at first. Sunday dinners became a tradition, and I treasured the time spent with Lily and Samuel. Lily was growing into a thoughtful young woman with a passion for books, just like her grandmother. Samuel was quieter, more reserved, but showed remarkable talent in art and music. As I spent more time with them, I began to notice certain things about Gregory and Heather's lifestyle. Their house was in an exclusive neighborhood, with 5 bedrooms despite being a family of 4. Heather drove a brand new luxury SUV, replaced seemingly every 2 years. Their closets were filled with designer labels, and they frequently mentioned exotic vacations and expensive restaurants. I tried to reconcile their apparent wealth with what I knew of Gregory's salary. While investment banking paid well, their spending seemed excessive. But I reminded myself that financial matters were different now than in my day, and perhaps Gregory had received promotions I wasn't aware of. The first time Gregory asked me for financial help was about a year after I moved closer to them. He approached me after Sunday dinner while Heather was putting the children to bed. "Mom, I hate to ask this," he said, looking genuinely uncomfortable, "but we're having a temporary cash flow issue with some investments. Could I possibly borrow $5,000? Just for a month or so?" Of course, I agreed immediately. He was my son and family helps family. I transferred the money the next day, happy to be in a position where I could help. A month passed, then 2, then 6. The loan was never mentioned again, nor was it repaid. Over the next year, I noticed Gregory and Heather's lifestyle becoming increasingly lavish. Heather began wearing new jewelry at family gatherings. Gregory mentioned joining an exclusive golf club where the annual membership fees were more than what some of my former colleagues earned in a year. Meanwhile, Gregory seemed increasingly stressed. He worked later hours, was often distracted during family gatherings, and I occasionally overheard tense phone conversations that ended abruptly when he noticed me nearby. The red flags were there, but I ignored them. After all, this was my son, the little boy I had raised, who had always made me proud. How could I have known what was brewing beneath the surface of their picture-perfect life? The first clear sign that something wasn't right came during a family dinner at Gregory and Heather's house. Heather was showing off her new diamond tennis bracelet, casually mentioning it was an anniversary gift from Gregory. I remembered their anniversary was still 3 months away. It must have cost a fortune, I remarked, admiring the sparkling stones. Gregory knows I deserve the best, Heather replied with a satisfied smile, shooting a glance at my son who seemed uncomfortable, but said nothing. Later that evening, while helping clean up in the kitchen, Gregory approached me with another request. Mom, I hate to ask again, but we have this opportunity to invest in a startup that's guaranteed to double our money within 6 months. I'm a little short on liquid cash right now. Could I borrow $20,000? I promise it's a solid investment. The amount shocked me, but his enthusiasm was convincing. He showed me documents on his phone, talking rapidly about market projections and return rates. The terminology went over my head, but I trusted his expertise in finance. Of course, Gregory, I said, patting his hand. Family helps family. The relief on his face was immediate. You're the best, Mom. I'll pay you back with interest, I promise. 2 days later, I transferred the money. That night, I saw Heather post pictures of a new luxury purse on social media, thanking Gregory for being the most generous husband. My friend Diana noticed my concern during our weekly lunch date. Diana and I had taught together for 30 years before retirement, and she knew me better than almost anyone. Martha, you seem distracted. Is everything all right? She asked over our soup and salads. I confided in her about the loans and my growing unease about Gregory and Heather's spending habits. Diana put down her spoon and looked at me seriously. Martha, I don't want to overstep, but $25,000 is a lot of money to just hand over without proper documentation. Have you asked for a formal loan agreement? I felt defensive. He's my son, Diana. We don't need paperwork between us. Even family should respect financial boundaries, she said gently. Just be careful. I've seen too many retired teachers struggle because they gave away too much of their nest egg. I changed the subject, uncomfortable with her implications. But her words stayed with me. A week later, I stopped by Gregory's house unannounced with some homemade cookies for the children. Heather answered the door in tennis clothes, clearly surprised to see me. Martha, we weren't expecting you, she said, blocking the doorway slightly. Behind her, I glimpsed workers installing what looked like an expensive sound system. Just then, Gregory appeared looking flustered. Mom, what brings you by? He asked, stepping outside rather than inviting me in. I brought cookies for Lily and Samuel, I explained, trying to peek past them into the house. They're at activities, Heather said quickly. We'll give them the cookies when they get home. Gregory took the container from me. Thanks, Mom. Sorry, but we're in the middle of some renovations. I'll call you later, okay? As I drove home, I felt a growing knot in my stomach. They were clearly hiding something from me. The following week, while having tea at Heather and Gregory's house, I accidentally knocked Heather's purse off the counter while she was answering the door. Credit card statements spilled out, and before I could help myself, I glimpsed the numbers. The balance on just one card was over $30,000. The minimum payment was more than my monthly pension. When Heather returned, I tried to broach the subject carefully. Heather, I couldn't help noticing your credit card statement. That's quite a balance. Is everything okay financially? Her face hardened instantly. Those are private, Martha. And yes, everything is fine. Gregory and I know what we're doing. I'm just concerned with the loans Gregory has asked for recently. Those are business matters between you and Gregory. She cut me off. I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't go through my personal things. I apologized, embarrassed and confused. Later, I tried to talk to Gregory directly about my concerns. Gregory, I'm worried about your spending. The loans, the expensive purchases, it seems like a lot. He laughed it off. Mom, it's just business expenses. Image is important in my field. Besides, it's temporary. That investment I told you about is going to pay off big time, and then I'll pay you back everything with interest. His confidence was reassuring, but something still felt wrong. The Gregory the first raised had been prudent and thoughtful, not flashy and evasive. Still, I wanted to believe him. He was my son after all. The little boy who once saved every birthday dollar in a piggy bank to buy a telescope. How could that boy have changed so much? 6 months passed, and I began to notice troubling patterns in my bank statements. My savings were diminishing far faster than they should have been based on my modest living expenses. One morning, while reviewing my accounts online, I discovered that nearly $150,000 had disappeared over the past year. Panic seized me. Had my identity been stolen? I immediately called my bank, hands shaking as I explained my concerns to the customer service representative. Mrs. Anderson, those were authorized transfers, the representative explained after reviewing the transactions. They were made to an account under the name Gregory Anderson. According to our records, you authorized these transfers yourself. My mind raced back to a stack of papers Gregory had brought for me to sign 3 months earlier, when I was recovering from a minor surgical procedure. I'd been groggy from pain medication, and he'd explained them as routine financial paperwork that needed my signature. It'll save you a trip to the bank, he'd said with that winning smile of his. Just your authorization for some of the accounts we discussed. I trusted him completely, signing where he indicated without reading the documents. How could I have been so foolish? With trembling fingers, I called Gregory immediately. Mom, it's not what you think, he said when I confronted him. I'm safeguarding your money. The market's volatile right now, and I've moved it to more secure investments under my management. Without discussing it with me first? My voice rose with disbelief. I tried to explain it before, but you didn't seem interested in the details, he replied smoothly. Don't worry, it's all there. I can transfer it back next week if you're concerned. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. This wasn't my son speaking. It was a stranger using familiar words to placate me. Yes, please return my money by next week, I said firmly. Of course, Mom. I'll take care of it. Next week came and went with no transfer. My calls to Gregory went straight to voicemail. When I finally reached him, there were new excuses. The funds are tied up in investments right now, Mom. Pulling them out would incur massive penalties. Give me a little more time. My anxiety grew with each passing day. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. When I tried to speak with Heather, she brushed me off. Gregory handles all our finances, Martha. You'll have to talk to him. Even my grandchildren seemed distant. When I mentioned money concerns during a visit, Lily quickly changed the subject, her eyes darting nervously toward the kitchen where Heather was preparing snacks. It was as if they'd been coached to avoid certain topics with me. In desperation, I called my younger sister Barbara, who lived in Arizona. Martha, this sounds like elder financial abuse, she said bluntly after I explained the situation. You need to get legal advice immediately. But he's my son, I protested weakly. And he's taking advantage of that fact, Barbara replied. Family or not, what he's doing is wrong and possibly criminal. The word criminal sent a chill through me. Could my own son be stealing from me? The thought was almost unbearable. Following Barbara's advice, I made an appointment with a financial advisor recommended by my bank. After reviewing my statements and the limited documentation I had, his face grew grave. Mrs. Anderson, I'm concerned about what I'm seeing here, he said gently. These transfers were made without proper documentation. The power of attorney form you supposedly signed doesn't look right, and the investment accounts your son claimed to open in your name don't appear to exist. My world tilted sideways. What are you saying? I'm saying your money may not be in investments at all. Your son may have been using your funds for personal expenses. The room seemed to spin around me. How much is gone? His answer confirmed my worst fears. Based on these records, approximately $400,000 has been transferred from your accounts over the past 18 months. More than half of my life savings. Gone. The security Patrick and I had worked so hard to build. vanished into my son's hands. What do? I whispered. First, we need to secure your remaining assets immediately. Then, you need to confront your son with evidence and possibly involve law enforcement. I left his office clutching a folder of bank statements and transfer records, my heart heavier than it had been even when Patrick died. This was a different kind of grief. The mourning of trust betrayed by someone I had brought into this world and loved unconditionally. That night I made my decision. I would confront Gregory in person with evidence in hand. I needed to look into his eyes when he explained where my money had gone. I chose a Saturday evening to drive to Gregory and Heather's house, my folder of financial documents tucked securely in my handbag. As I pulled up to their sprawling suburban home, I noticed several luxury cars parked in the driveway and music drifting from the backyard. They were hosting a party, another extravagant display funded, perhaps, by my life savings. For a moment, I considered turning back, confronting Gregory another time. But anger and determination propelled me forward. I'd worked too hard for too long to have my security stolen from me, even by my own child. I rang the doorbell, smoothing down my simple cotton dress, suddenly conscious of how plain I must look compared to Heather's fashionable friends. Heather herself answered the door, champagne flute in hand, her smile faltering when she saw me. "Martha, we weren't expecting you tonight." Her voice carried a note of irritation poorly masked by forced cheerfulness. "I need to speak with Gregory," I said firmly. "It's important." Heather blocked the doorway slightly. "We're hosting the neighborhood association tonight. Could this wait until tomorrow?" "No," I replied, surprising myself with my assertiveness. "It cannot wait." Something in my tone must have conveyed my resolve, because she reluctantly stepped aside. "He's in his office. Try not to disturb our guests, please." I navigated through clusters of well-dressed people holding wine glasses, nodding politely at curious glances. No one seemed to recognize me as Gregory's mother, which struck me as odd. Had he never mentioned me to his friends and neighbors? Gregory's home office was at the end of a hallway, away from the main living areas. The door was closed. I knocked firmly. "Come in," he called. When I entered, Gregory was seated behind an imposing mahogany desk that hadn't been there during my last visit. The office itself had been completely redecorated with expensive-looking art on the walls and a plush oriental rug underfoot. He looked up from his computer screen, surprise quickly replaced by wariness when he saw me. "Mom? What are you doing here?" "We need to talk about my money, Gregory." I closed the door behind me and approached his desk, pulling out the folder of statements. "Now isn't a good time," he said, glancing at his watch. "We have guests." "Yes, I can see that. Quite a lavish party you're throwing." I laid the bank statements on his desk. "I wonder if your guests know who's really funding your lifestyle." His face darkened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know what you've done," I said, my voice remarkably steady despite my racing heart. $400,000, Gregory. Nearly $500,000 of my life savings, transferred to your accounts without my knowledge. I told you I'm managing those investments for you." His tone was dismissive, but his eyes kept darting to the closed door. "There are no investments, are there?" I pressed. "My financial advisor confirmed it today. Those accounts don't exist." For a moment Gregory said nothing, just stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Then something changed in his face, a hardening, a coldness I'd never seen before. "So what if they don't?" he finally said, his voice frighteningly calm. "Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain our position in this community? The club memberships, the private schools, the right car, the right address." I stared at him, stunned by his admission. "You stole from me to keep up appearances?" "I didn't steal anything," he snapped. "I took what was coming to me anyway. After all I've done for you since Dad died, moving you closer, including you in our lives. That money would have been mine eventually." The callousness of his words struck me like physical blows. "That money was for my retirement, my medical care. Your father and I worked our entire lives to save it." "Dad was small time," Gregory scoffed. "An accountant who never had the courage to take risks. Do you know what my colleagues would think if they knew my parents were just teachers and bean counters?" Each word cut deeper than the last. This wasn't my son speaking, it couldn't be. I want my money back, Gregory, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. All of it. Or I'll go to the police. He laughed then, a cold sound that sent chills down my spine. The police? You'd report your own son? Besides, you signed those transfer authorizations. Under false pretenses while I was medicated. That's fraud. Gregory stood suddenly, towering over me. I'd forgotten how tall he was, how physically imposing he could be when he wanted to. It's your word against mine, Mother. A confused, aging widow against a respected investment banker. Who do you think they'll believe? The bank records speak for themselves, I countered, refusing to be intimidated despite the fear creeping up my spine. His face contorted with anger. It's none of your business what I do with that money. It should have been mine years ago. I'm making it my business, I said, gathering my courage. Either you return my money, or I'm going straight to the police from here. I turned to leave, clutching my folder of evidence. That's when I felt his hands on my shoulders, spinning me around roughly. You're not going anywhere, he growled. I stumbled backward toward the open door, shock paralyzing me momentarily. My son had never laid a hand on me in anger before. Gregory, stop this. I pleaded, not recognizing the man before me. You ungrateful old woman, he hissed. After everything I've done for you. As I backed into the hallway, he followed, his face twisted with rage. Give me those papers. No, I clutched the folder tighter. This is evidence of what you've done. In that moment, something snapped in him. He lunged forward, shoving me hard with both hands. I felt myself falling backward, tumbling down the wooden staircase behind me that I hadn't realized was so close. The fall seemed to happen in slow motion. My arms flailed, trying to grab the banister but finding only air. The folder flew from my hands, papers scattering like leaves. Then came the impacts, my body bouncing against the hard wooden steps, pain exploding in my hip, my shoulder, my head. I came to rest at the bottom of the stairs, dazed and in agony. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard gasps and exclamations from party guests who had witnessed my fall. Above me, Gregory stood at the top of the stairs, his expression a mixture of shock and something else, calculation. She tripped, I heard him say loudly. My mother has balance problems. I tried to catch her. Heather appeared beside him, taking in the scene with a quick glance. Her eyes met mine briefly, and I saw knowledge there. She knew exactly what had happened. Someone call an ambulance, a guest called out. No need, Heather said quickly. She seems all right, just shaken up. Gregory and I will take care of her. She descended the stairs and crouched beside me, her voice low enough that only I could hear. You need to leave. Now, before you embarrass yourself and us any further. He pushed me. I whispered, pain shooting through my ribs with each breath. He stole my money and then pushed me down the stairs. Heather's perfectly made-up face hardened. No one will believe you. Look at yourself, Martha. You probably did trip. Gregory would never hurt anyone. Somehow I managed to stand, though every movement was agony. A party guest handed me my scattered papers, which I clutched like a lifeline. I think you should go home, Martha, Heather said loudly enough for everyone to hear. You're clearly not well. We'll check on you tomorrow. The humiliation burned almost as much as the physical pain. Guests averted their eyes as Heather ushered me toward the front door, her hand on my elbow like a security guard removing an unwanted intruder. Don't come back, she whispered as she opened the door. You're not welcome here anymore. The door closed behind me with a decisive click. I stood on their perfect porch, injured and alone, betrayed by my own flesh and blood. Somehow I made it to my car, though driving home was a blur of pain and tears. That night, curled in my bed with ice packs on my injuries, I mourned not just for my lost savings, but for the son I thought I knew. The little boy who once made me Mother's Day cards with crayon hearts was gone, replaced by a stranger who would push his own mother down a flight of stairs to protect his secrets. Morning brought stiffness and bruises, physical manifestations of the previous night's trauma. My left wrist throbbed when I tried to use it, and deep purple bruises mottled my right side. Each breath sent sharp pains through my ribcage. But worst of all was the hollowness in my chest, an emotional wound far more painful than any physical injury. I called my sister Barbara, struggling to keep my voice steady as I recounted what had happened. "My God, Martha," she gasped. "You need to go to the hospital right now. And then straight to the police." "I don't want to get him in trouble," I said weakly, some maternal instinct still protecting the child who had become a monster. "He pushed you down a flight of stairs," Barbara said firmly. "He's stolen nearly $500,000 from you. He's already in trouble, and it's his own doing. This isn't about punishing Gregory anymore. This is about protecting yourself." Barbara was right, of course. She always had been the more practical sister. I agreed to go to the hospital and reluctantly consented when she insisted on calling the police to meet me there. The emergency room doctor confirmed what I already suspected: a sprained wrist, bruised ribs, and numerous contusions. "You're lucky nothing's broken," he told me as he wrapped my wrist. "Falls at your age can be very serious." "It wasn't an accident," I said quietly. "My son pushed me." The doctor's expression shifted from clinical interest to concern. He excused himself and returned moments later with a social worker and Officer Johnson, a kind-faced policewoman in her 40s. Officer Johnson took my statement with gentle professionalism, her expression remaining neutral even as I described Gregory's theft and the subsequent confrontation. "Financial elder abuse often escalates to physical abuse," she explained as she noted down the details. "Unfortunately, it's more common than people realize, especially when family members are involved. I never thought my own son would." My voice broke. "Mrs. Anderson, perpetrators count on that disbelief," the social worker interjected softly. "They use the family connection as both access and shield." Officer Johnson finished taking my statement and asked if I wanted to press charges for assault and financial abuse. Despite everything, I hesitated. "He's still my son. Mrs. Anderson," Officer Johnson said gently. "If he's done this to you, his own mother, what else might he be capable of? Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for someone we love is to hold them accountable." I went home with discharge instructions, prescription pain medication, and Officer Johnson's card. She promised to follow up about the financial aspects of my case, regardless of whether I decided to press charges for the assault. That night was the longest of my life. I lay awake, replaying memories of Gregory growing up, his first steps, his high school graduation, walking him down the aisle at his wedding after Patrick became too ill to stand. Where had that boy gone? When had money and status become more important to him than family? Had I somehow failed as a mother to instill the right values? The ringing phone jolted me from my thoughts. It was barely 7 in the morning. Gingerly, I reached for the receiver with my uninjured hand. "Mrs. Anderson? This is Thomas Blackwell from First National Bank's Fraud Investigation Department. I apologize for calling so early, but we have an urgent matter to discuss regarding your accounts." My stomach tightened. "Yes, I'm aware of the unauthorized transfers. I've spoken with my local branch already. This goes beyond those transfers, Mrs. Anderson. We've uncovered additional suspicious activities involving your son, Gregory Anderson. Our systems flagged unusual patterns yesterday evening, and given the amount of money involved, we've already notified the authorities." "What kind of suspicious activities?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. "Mrs. Anderson, it appears your son has been using forged documents to access not just your personal savings, but also attempting to leverage your home as collateral for high-interest loans. Furthermore, we've discovered evidence that he's been engaging in similar activities with other family members of his clients." The room seemed to spin around me. "Other people? You mean he's been stealing from others too?" "I'm afraid so. The Police Financial Crimes Unit has been investigating him for several months. Your case has provided them with the evidence they needed to move forward." After hanging up, I sat motionless, trying to absorb this new information. Gregory hadn't just betrayed me. He'd apparently been defrauding others as well. How deep did this deception go? As if in answer to my unspoken question, the phone rang again. This time it was Harold Jenkins, the family lawyer who had handled Patrick's estate. "Martha, I've just been contacted by the authorities regarding Gregory," he said without preamble. "I'm so sorry this is happening. I had no idea." "Neither did I admitted. "Martha, there's something you should know. Gregory and Heather are in serious financial trouble. They've been living far beyond their means for years. Gregory lost his position at the investment firm nearly 8 months ago. What? I gasped. But he still goes to work every day. He talks about his clients, his office. It's all been a charade. He was terminated for ethical violations, but kept up appearances. Meanwhile, he's been desperately trying to maintain their lifestyle through increasingly risky and illegal means. The authorities believe gambling debts may be involved as well. My mind flashed to all the times Gregory had seemed stressed, the late-night phone calls, his desperate need for money. It was starting to make a terrible kind of sense. What happens now? I asked, feeling suddenly very tired. The authorities are building their case. Gregory and Heather's assets are being frozen pending investigation. That includes their house, cars, everything. Given the evidence against them and the multiple victims involved, this is extremely serious, Martha. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. My son, my brilliant, ambitious son, was not just a thief but a criminal involved in a web of fraud that extended far beyond me. And Heather, with her designer clothes and perfect smile, had been complicit all along. The tears came then, not just for my lost savings, but for the family that had been destroyed by greed. I wept for my grandchildren, who would soon face the public humiliation of their parents' crimes. I wept for the little boy Gregory had once been, and for my own blindness in not seeing what he had become. As I sat there, my phone beeped with a text message notification. It was from Lily, my granddaughter. "Grandma, I need to talk to you. It's important. Can I come over?" Despite my pain, both physical and emotional, I texted back immediately. "Of course, sweetheart. Anytime." Whatever was coming next, I would face it. For my grandchildren, if not for myself, I needed to be strong. Lily arrived at my condo an hour later, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. At 15, she was at that awkward age between child and woman. But that day she looked much older than her years. "Grandma, what's happening?" she asked as soon as I let her in. "Dad's been on the phone all morning yelling. Mom's locked herself in their bathroom. Nobody will tell me anything." I led her to the couch, wincing at the pain in my ribs. Lily noticed my careful movements and the bandage on my wrist. "What happened to you?" she asked, eyes widening. How much should I tell her? She was still a child, but she deserved some truth. "I had a fall at your house last night," I said carefully, "after a disagreement with your father." Her face crumpled. "He pushed you, didn't he? Like he pushed Samuel last month when he asked about the credit card people who kept calling." My blood ran cold. "Your father pushed Samuel?" Lily nodded, tears spilling over. "Dad's been different lately. Angry all the time. He pretends everything's fine when people are watching, but at home." She trailed off, looking down at her hands. "Lily, sweetheart, I need you to tell me what's been happening at home." The story that poured out broke my heart all over again. Gregory had lost his job months ago, but continued the pretense of going to work. He'd been drinking heavily, having explosive arguments with Heather about money. The children were instructed to maintain the facade of a perfect family, but behind closed doors, their home had become a pressure cooker of secrets and fear. "Mom keeps saying everything will be fine once Dad's big deal comes through," Lily explained. "But nothing's fine. There are strange men who come to the house sometimes, when they think we're asleep. I heard one of them threaten Dad last week." Loan sharks, I realized with horror. Gregory had gotten involved with dangerous people. Just then my phone rang. Gregory's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered on speaker so Lily could hear. "Mom," Gregory's voice was frantic. "Everything's falling apart. The bank's frozen our accounts. They're saying something about fraud investigations. I need your help." "What kind of help, Gregory?" I kept my voice neutral, conscious of Lily listening. "Money, of course. $15,000 just to tide us over until I sort this out. You have to help us, Mom. We're your family." The desperation in his voice might have moved me just days ago. Now it only confirmed what I already knew. "Gregory, you stole $400,000 from me. You pushed me down the stairs when I confronted you. And now I hear you've been mistreating your children as well." "That's not true," he sputtered. "Who's been telling you these lies? Is Lily with you? Put her on the phone right now." Lily shrank back, shaking her head vehemently. Gregory, I can't help you anymore, I said firmly. Not with money, not with lies. Whatever happens now is the consequence of your own actions. You vindictive old witch, he hissed, his tone changing instantly. You did this, didn't you? Called the banks, the police. Your own son.
No, Gregory.
You did this. All of it. I ended the call as he continued to rant. Moments later, a text from Heather appeared. How could you do this to us? We're going to lose everything because of you. I hope you're satisfied. I showed Lily the text. Your mother seems to think I'm responsible for their current situation. That's not fair, Lily said quietly. They did bad things, not you. Adults don't always take responsibility for their actions. I told her, putting an arm around her shoulders. But I want you to know something important. None of this is your fault or Samuel's fault. No matter what happens next, I'm here for you both. My phone rang again, Officer Johnson this time. Mrs. Anderson, I wanted to update you. Based on the evidence from the bank in your statement, we've obtained warrants for your son and daughter-in-law's arrest on multiple charges of fraud, elder abuse, and assault. They'll be taken into custody this afternoon. My heart sank, even though I'd known this was coming. What about their children? My grandchildren? Child Protective Services has been notified. Given the circumstances, would you be willing to provide temporary housing for them? The alternative would be emergency foster care, until a more permanent arrangement can be made. Of course I'll take them, I said without hesitation. They're my grandchildren. After hanging up, I explained the situation to Lily as gently as I could. Your parents are in serious trouble, sweetheart. The police are going to arrest them today. Her face went pale, but she nodded slowly. Are they going to jail? Probably yes. At least until their trial. What's going to happen to me and Samuel? You'll stay with me, if that's okay with you. Relief flooded her face. Yes, please. I don't want to go with strangers. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation settling around us. Grandma, Lily said finally, I've known something was wrong for a long time. Dad made us promise not to tell anyone about the money problems or the men who came to the house. He said you wouldn't understand. He was right about that, I said softly. I don't understand how he could do these things. But I do understand that you and Samuel need stability and love right now, and that I can provide. That afternoon, a social worker brought Samuel to my condo. The 12-year-old was quiet and withdrawn, his eyes darting nervously around as if expecting danger. It broke my heart to see him so fearful. News of Gregory and Heather's arrest spread quickly. By evening, it was the lead story on local news. Investment banker and wife arrested in major fraud scheme. The reporters mentioned multiple victims, including the suspect's elderly mother, though thankfully they didn't name me directly. The next few days passed in a blur of police interviews, meetings with lawyers, and trying to create some sense of normalcy for Lily and Samuel. The children were subdued but seemed relieved to be away from the tension of their parents' home. A week after the arrests, we received notice that Gregory and Heather's house had been officially confiscated as part of the criminal investigation. The expensive cars, designer clothes, jewelry, all would be liquidated to repay victims of their fraud. Did they really steal from other people, not just you? Samuel asked one evening as we watched the news report about the case. Yes, sweetheart, I'm afraid they did, I answered honestly. Why? His simple question cut to the heart of everything. I wish I knew, I said. Sometimes people get so focused on having things, on looking successful, that they lose sight of what really matters. Like family, Lily said quietly. Exactly like family, I agreed, pulling them both into a gentle hug. Through the legal proceedings that followed, I learned the full extent of Gregory and Heather's deception. Beyond stealing from me, Gregory had been embezzling from clients for years, using elaborate schemes to hide his tracks. The gambling debts that Lily had overheard were substantial, owed to people who didn't take IOUs lightly. Heather had been fully aware and complicit, using her social connections to lure in new victims. Their house of cards had been on the verge of collapse for months. My confrontation had simply accelerated the inevitable. The hardest day came when I had to testify against my own son in court. Sitting on the witness stand, looking at Gregory in his prison jumpsuit, I hardly recognized the angry, defiant man before me. When asked why I had initially hesitated to report his crimes, I answered truthfully. Because he's my son and I love him. I always will. But loving someone doesn't mean allowing them to harm others or themselves. Gregory never looked me in the eye throughout the entire trial. 6 months after that fateful night on the stairs, Gregory and Heather were sentenced to prison terms. 8 years for him, 5 for her, with the possibility of parole. The judge had been particularly harsh given the elder abuse aspects of the case, and the fact that they had involved their children in their deceptions. The family court granted me permanent custody of Lily and Samuel. At 68, becoming a parent again wasn't what I had envisioned for my retirement years, but there was no question in my mind about taking them in. They were innocent victims of their parents' choices, and they needed stability now more than ever. We moved from my small condo to a modest 3-bedroom house in a good school district. It was nothing like the mansion they'd grown up in, but it was warm and safe, and gradually, it became home. Through the victim restitution program, I recovered about $180,000 of my stolen savings. It wasn't the comfortable retirement fund Patrick and I had planned, but combined with my pension and careful budgeting, it was enough to provide for our needs. The emotional recovery was far more challenging than the financial one. Samuel had nightmares for months, waking up crying for parents who had betrayed his trust. Lily swung between anger at her parents and guilt for not doing something sooner, though I constantly reassured her that none of this was her responsibility. For my part, I struggled with my own feelings of failure. Had I spoiled Gregory? Missed crucial warning signs in his development? The therapist we all began seeing helped me understand that while parents influence their children, adults make their own choices. Gregory's actions were his responsibility, not mine. Slowly, painfully, we began to heal. Samuel discovered a talent for computer programming, spending hours creating games and animations that made him smile again. Lily joined the school newspaper, finding her voice as a writer and advocate for others. As for me, I found unexpected strength in this new chapter of life. I joined a support group for victims of family financial abuse, discovering I wasn't alone in my experience. The stories shared in that circle of parents, grandparents, siblings betrayed by those they trusted most, were heartbreaking but also empowering. Together, we found ways to rebuild our lives and our sense of trust. 6 months into Gregory's sentence, I received my first letter from him. The handwriting was familiar, but the tone was new, humbled, reflective. "Dear Mom," he wrote, "I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm facing what I've done. The person I became was not someone I recognize or respect. I'm working with counselors here to understand why I chose money and status over the people who truly loved me. I think of you, Lily, and Samuel every day, and the pain I've caused is my heaviest burden. I don't ask for your trust again. I know that's gone forever. But I hope someday you can believe that I am truly sorry." I read the letter several times, emotions warring within me. Hope that he was genuinely changing, skepticism born from too many broken promises. In the end, I wrote back, not with forgiveness yet, but with honesty. "Gregory, I will always love the boy you were and hope for the man you can become. I cannot offer financial support anymore, but I can offer the truth. Real wealth isn't in bank accounts or status symbols. It's in the connections we nurture and the integrity we maintain. Your children are safe and healing. When you're ready to be the father they deserve, without expectations or manipulations, that door will remain open." Life settled into new patterns. I found joy in small moments, helping Samuel with science projects, watching Lily perform in the school play, Sunday dinners where laughter gradually returned to our table. My sister Barbara visited regularly, becoming the loving aunt the children needed in their lives. 2 years after the arrests, I was approached by a local senior center to share my story as part of a financial literacy program. Standing at that podium, looking out at faces marked by both concern and compassion, I found my voice again. "Trust is precious," I told them, "and when it's broken by someone you love, the pain can be overwhelming. But I'm here to tell you that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be the beginning of a new chapter, one where you set boundaries, recognize your own worth, and perhaps most importantly, discover strengths you never knew you had." That presentation led to others, and soon I found myself advocating for stronger protections against elder financial abuse. The teacher in me had found a new classroom, and the hurt I'd experienced became a tool to help others protect themselves. Lily and Samuel accompanied me to many of these talks, sometimes sharing their own perspectives. Watching them grow into thoughtful, compassionate teenagers despite their difficult start filled me with pride and hope. As for forgiveness, that's a journey still in progress. Some days it seems impossible. Other days I glimpse its healing potential. What I've learned is that forgiveness isn't about erasing the past or pretending the harm never happened. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of bitterness, making peace with what cannot be changed. The money Gregory stole represented decades of careful saving, countless hours of Patrick's and my labor. But the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars or stolen by betrayal. Courage, resilience, the capacity to begin again, and the wisdom to recognize true wealth when you see it. That terrible night on the staircase could have been the end of my story, a final chapter of betrayal and loss. Instead, it became a painful but necessary turning point, leading to a life richer in meaning if not in money. So if you're facing betrayal from someone you love, know this: you can survive it, you can rebuild, and you might discover that your heart, once broken, grows back stronger in the wounded places. Have you ever had to rebuild trust after it was broken? How did you find the strength to move forward? Please share your experiences in the comments below and remember to like and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and recovery. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the family we create through love and choice proves stronger than the one we're born into.